LYNEports for hosting this webinar. Today our topic is about engaging the next generation, how using social media drives awareness for advanced air mobility and community acceptance. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Benjamin Spiske, an architect and expert in vertical infrastructure. I'm excited to be here today moderating this dynamic discussion. As part of Bud Swiss and Aaron X, leaders in heliport and vertiport design and planning, I have the privilege of working on cutting edge of urban air mobility. Today, we are exploring how social media is shaping the future of advanced air mobility and architecture. Social media plays a powerful role in raising awareness and building public acceptance. But how can it also inspire the next generation of architects, planners, and designers to engage with AAM? Join us in welcoming some of the most forward-thinking professionals in this space. Hector Pujadas, over a decade in global aviation leadership as a general manager, project manager, and senior advisor, now leading AAM efforts in Saudi Arabia, advising the AAM Institute and teaching. He drives innovation, sustainability, and tech integration, also using social media to inspire future aviation talent. Thank you, Hector. Mohamed Taher, widely known as the airport guy. He's an aerospace engineer turned content creator, now a UK aviation ambassador. As an aerodrome system specialist at the UK's busiest airport, he built a 500,000 strong online community to inspire unrepresented groups into aviation. Great to hear that. Malik is the CDO for aerospace and aviation EMEA at Atos, specializing in advanced air mobility and AI. With expertise across multiple regions, including Europe, the UK, and the UAE, he leads technological advancements and strategic transformations in the aerospace industry. Ahmad is also a mentor, pilot, and sailor, driving change in technology and sustainability. Looking forward to hear more about him. Ivanna Papushenko is a young architect and influencer shaping the future of design. Based in Zurich, she blends sustainability with innovation. A DAAD scholar and European Forum Alpach participant, she explores architecture role in inclusivity, mental health, and urbanism. Let me provide you a teaser about today's discussion. As urban air mobility continues to evolve, the role of social media in shaping public perception and community. This session will explore how platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn are making AAM relatable through influencers, viral content, and storytelling. We will discuss how social media bridges the gap between innovation and public concerns like safety, noise, and sustainability, while building trust through transparent communication. Finally, we'll look at how digital tools like geospatial software and simulation are driving smarter, scalable AAM infrastructure planning. Join us as we have to explore how social media, technology, and strategic communication are shaping the future of aviation architecture. Let's get started. I have the first question to Ahmad. Social media plays a big role in inspiring future professionals. How do you see content like yours influencing how young architects and planners or designers approach new urban challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So the reason why I started the social media and the podcast thing is really alien to me, the concept of being in front of the camera or in front of people. I'm an introvert and I'm a techie. You know, we are found in the dark corners of the offices working away. But the reason I started doing this is because I realized that we are at the intersection of a big transformation within the aviation industry. The propensity of change is huge with what's happening in the advancement in technology, aviation itself, and things like AI and how technology is able to make our lives better. I think there's a coordinated effort needed, collaboration from all sides. And I didn't feel that was quite happening the way that it should be. So I spent a lot of time doing some research. I was writing a paper, which turned into a book. And I thought, this is not going to help me. I need to talk about it. So I kind of put on my big boy pants and got in front of the camera. So here we are. I think this can really help educate people, educate the masses. And there's also a little bit of a gap within the aviation industry. I'm sorry to say, but aviation is very much the way it's always been, that kind of approach set in its ways, if you may. It's been a long time. They've done a great job now it needs to evolve. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here. And the format is trying to engage people. I do get techie. I do have a propensity to become geeky, but I like to keep everyone involved. We have talked about just AI and, the details of technology in AI, but I try to make it educational and make sure everyone can understand. So
That's great, Ahmad. And don't worry about that, because I'm not used to speak. So I'm also not that guy who's comfy in situations like that, but we have a nice group here, so I think it will work out finally. And let me quickly interrupt you and also let me introduce quickly Steve Thorn, and I would like to give the word to Steve because he lately joined the call, or let's say this meeting, and give him the chance to introduce himself quickly. You're on mute, Steve.
Okay, unmuted. How's that? Yeah, sorry about that. It's been a little bit of a crazy time for me right now. I'm a general aviation content creator, fly all kinds of different types of aircraft, and share training and experiences throughout that kind of world. Lately, I've been learning more about electric aviation and what's happening with advanced air mobility, I guess is what we're calling it. Actually, yesterday I got to fly a LEA with Beta aircraft, and they threw me in the left seat. I had done some training in the sim previously, and that was my first chance to fly a truly fly-by-wire system. I'm just literally back from that shoot. That's why I'm late, and that was quite an interesting experience. So it's been really amazing to watch where this category of aviation is going right now in the world.
No, you're more than welcome, Steve, and let me come back to the topic, as you maybe missed that. So it's about social media influence on let's say, the future professionals. And I think, let me ask and come back to the discussion. I was going to ask the panel, and I would like to proceed with Ivanna. What types of content do you think resonate most with aspiring architects and planners and designers? Because Ivanna, I think you can bring the most content on that.
I would say that the catchiest content would be personal storytelling, because people need emotions, and it doesn't matter if it's about tech topic or medicine or biology. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Architecture. It's really important to bring some personal experience, some personal emotions, personal feelings, because every story we can present differently from different point of view. So I usually do this way, that I start about my personal story. How did I start, for example, or how did that specific situation influence my life, and so on. And yeah, I mean, that's how I think everyone likes to get information, just like personal emotions, like this.
No, that's really nice what you said. I love this. It's about storytelling indeed. Mohammad, you're I think the most experienced social media poster here in the crew. And how do you measure the impact of your content on young professionals? Tell us more about that.
Great question. And I think some people can be misguided in terms of trying to understand the impact through numbers. It can be nice and glamorous to look at how many thousands of followers you have, or how many comments, or how many likes. And I think those are reasonable ways to measure success of a campaign or success of a video. But the real impact, I believe, actually is found in the DMs. The number of messages that I get from young people who are like, bro, like, I've been watching your stuff for like a year now, and I really, really want to get into aviation. Like, I've decided I want to get into this industry because of your videos. For me, that is the measure of success. It's when you can really convert somebody from not knowing anything about this industry to saying, I want to be a part of this industry. And what's amazing is I was at Heathrow Airport for almost 5 years creating behind the scenes content. And one day I was sat in a room full of all of the engineers, graduates, all of the apprentices, the interns, every single young person under the age of 25 the Heathrow Airport had hired over a 5-year period was all sat in one room. And I was really curious at that point. I've been making content for so long. I knew a few of them. I had actually helped with their application process. But I was curious, and actually at the end of the event, I jumped on the stage, I grabbed the microphone, and before the event was about to go and everyone was going to go in their own direction, I said, hey, quick question. Who in this room decided that they want to join Heathrow Airport's engineering programs because of one of my videos on TikTok? If my TikTok videos influenced your decision, put your hand up. 53% of the room put their hand up. More than half a room full of talent said it was your TikTok and Instagram videos that made me want to choose a career in aviation. Now, if that doesn't tell you about where the world is headed and how young people make their decisions, then nothing will. And what's interesting about that figure of 53% is the Department for Transport here in the UK has released a study that shows 55% of young people will use the internet and social media to choose their career. So Department for Transport data is 55%. My data says 53%. It's pretty accurate, more than half. For me, that's the measure of success, the conversion rate of these young people.
That's really interesting, really interesting. I mean, I struggle on my own to get enough, let's say, followers or whatever. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, but let's say about the other ones, Instagram, TikTok, I'm far away from you. I can tell you. Let me follow up with the next question I would like to ask the group. And new infrastructure and transportation models require public acceptance. This is a big topic in aviation. You know that better than me, guys. But the smart airports, vertiports, or sustainable urban hubs, how can influencers help to make these concepts feel natural, I would say normal, accessible, and even desirable? Mohammed, what is your take?
So really the question is how much do influencers play a part in people's decision making and understanding of the world? And then that question is, well, how do people even understand the world in the first place? Right? We lived in an age where people used to read books to learn about the world. They used to read the newspaper, and they used to do this, and there was all these various ways of understanding what is happening in the world. But it's all sort of crystallized to a point where if you want to understand the world around you, this, swipe. This is how people consume information. That's just how it is. So then what that means is that the people who are responsible for putting information on those screens are the ones who begin to actually decide and design cultures within society. Like they are truly influencers in the way that they can actually influence culture because of the way that they appear online. I think the influencers is one word that I don't like, because if you search influencer into Google and you see the pictures, that's the perception of what people think of influencers. I prefer the term educators. And for me, I'm an aerospace engineer. I mean, I didn't choose to be an influencer. I just like to teach people stuff. So for me, it's more about influencers can, like, hold a Louis Vuitton bag and go into a nice, vertiport and do that stuff. But for me, more the public acceptance won't come from the flashy stuff. The public acceptance will come from simplifying the processes, explaining the physics, showcasing the ease, showcasing the use cases. It's the educational part of social media that I think will truly move the needle more than just the flashy stuff on the surface. And we're probably going to have to be in a position where we see some trends pop up here and there, that then we ride the wave of those trends. And I think that's really what's going to move the needle. But yeah, I think educators and influencers have a massive part to play in teaching the public, not just showing, but teaching the public about this new way of travel.
I like what you said. It's not about influencing, it's about teaching or education about, let's say, our listeners or let's say our followers. Let me turn the question a little in a different direction. And how do you build trust with public when promoting new and futuristic ideas like vertiports or smart airports? And I would like to give this question to Ivanna, because she is a lot working in this area.
I also agree with Mohammed about this influencer word. I don't like it at all, because for me, like in Ukrainian language, we have another word. We call it like phrase, leader of speech or leader of phrases, a leader of thoughts. And I love it much more because influencers usually connected somehow to, again, Louis Vuitton bag and so on. And I prefer to give people idea to architecture students or just students to give this idea that you can try whatever you want. want. You can do whatever you want. There is no limits in your career, in your life. Like you can do what you want. And here is also example that with such easy examples of in what area should we work. This is also not typical architecture. Like, for example, how many architecture students adopt and don't think, oh, maybe I'm not good enough in architecture. And I'm like, wait. But your degree doesn't mean that you have to go directly to architecture. You can do everything and architecture. and this is what I also love. Like, yes, sure, you have to learn more and deeper and maybe other areas together with architecture. But that's what I want to give to our generations and new generations, that there are so many niche areas that are connected somehow to architecture, that maybe you would love to try this one, and maybe you would find there, because maybe it's your hobby and you connect architecture with your hobby already, and it's already, love, and I see your shiny eyes. So yeah, that's what I would say about this.
That's great. It's great. Hector, you was going to say something, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I fully agree with my colleagues, Mohammed and Ivanna. No, it's about educating. It's about bringing, I would say, what now probably it's unfamiliar to something like really common, no, on our daily lives, no. And this comes with obviously, people probably like us, no, that are talking about this ecosystem, a new ecosystem that it's growing. Where, like Ivanna was mentioning, I mean, it's really big, no? I mean, everybody obviously looks at the more fancy things like the eVTOLs, no? Because they are flying, etc., probably are more catchy, no, than other things. But there are millions of aspects, like, for example, everything related with the batteries, charging, etc., I mean, you don't see this kind of content, let's say, going on the social media, but it's key, no? Because obviously, if you don't have power, you're not going to see these beautiful eVTOLs in the skies, no? So 100% agree with what they are saying. I think that the most important thing that we can do it's educate and bring, to the streets, no, to normal people. I mean, what it's all about, how they're going to benefit, the differences, that are going to, let's say, have or impact their daily lives, no, like commuting, I don't know, from one vertiport in the middle of a city to an airport instead of just being in a taxi for 40 minutes or whatever, doing it only in 10 minutes, no. So these are the things that I think that are more important, no, to the general public, no. I mean, how this is going to benefit me, and is it safe? Is it like flying with a plane, or what is it all about? No. So I think that when we see this industry just growing a little bit more and getting more aircraft certified, etc., the part of safety and how it works, etc., will really be interesting, no, to show to the public.
Yeah, I want to add something here, because everyone is talking about influencer and all that sort of stuff. I think the terminology we are using is actually wrong. We here are not really influencers. I think we would like to say we are thought leaders. We're providing thought leadership to the community, to the people. I mean, I can say that, for example, Steve, I've been following Steve for many, many years. I have the badges and everything. We used to be one of our Patreons. And when I started learning flying, this is many years ago, it was people like Steve and other people who provide you the training and the ideas and even learning to fly, things they tell about from their experiences in the world, and they record it and they publish it to the world, is what makes you a better pilot, that makes you a better engineer, makes you, a better aircraft certifier, or in our case, in the advanced air mobility, all these different facets that are involved. This ecosystem is much more complex than our normal general aviation or even commercial aviation. Because in commercial aviation, we are talking about a set schedule and flights are going from one place to another. They follow a very specific path. The airways are there. Everything is there to support that infrastructure. Unfortunately, we are completely coming out of that paradigm, and we are looking at things very, very differently. If you are going to make eVTOL successful, or the overall advanced air mobility, the flexibility, we have to think outside the box. And that can only happen if you have that thought leadership, that guidance from people who are trying to educate the environment. Because one of my biggest fears is that there's a lot of passion and a lot of focus and a lot of talk. Safety, you hear about it every single conversation I've sit down. There is safety conversation. I work for Eurocontrol. I hear that all the time. SQS is my biggest challenge. But, there are other factors, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. I was speaking with the people in India who are trying to really actively promote. And they are only focusing on developing the technology. And I said, how are you going to charge these things? Where are you going to accommodate the traffic? How are the air traffic controller will integrate into that? I mean, handling 10 planes is one thing. Handling 100 aircraft in the air, in the urban or regional environment, it's just a whole different thing. So, we really have to think outside the box. And I hope that I can play a small part in that education. So I think, we are, not influencers at all. We don't have the Louis Vuitton bags or, things like that. I think we have the mind and the knowledge, and we're trying to educate the world.
That's right, Ahmad. And I mean, we are not the Louis Vuitton guys. We are really pragmatic, hands-on. What I like, and talking about hands-on, there's one question what I always ask my friends: could you imagine to fly in an air taxi tomorrow? And all looking at me, oh, I don't know. But we have someone here, Steve, and I would like to hear from Steve, because Steve flew these air taxis already. So I'm curious about to hear his voice, his opinion, and his experience.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry, I missed the beginning. I probably started that answer too early there. But yeah, so I've done some training with Joby at one of the symposiums and got to fly their sim. I'm probably going to go back and run through their program. But yeah, my recent experience has been with Beta, and they are probably the ones that have done the most field work with the aircraft. They just flew Aliyah, their, I guess it's their production intent aircraft. It's not a prototype. So it's really real. And they just got it all the way from Vermont, where they built it, to California, down to Florida, and then back to Vermont. So I joined them for a couple of legs on that trip. And yesterday I did get to fly left seat. So it was real deal. Pretty interesting to see what they're working on. They've really worked from the perspective of trying to make an airframe that really glides well, like too well, frankly. I got to land it twice yesterday, and both times I got it done okay, but I really found that it was on a profile that was much shallower than I would fly almost anything else that I fly, just because it has a 15-to-1 glide ratio, which is quite impressive for what it is, because it's quite a bulky looking airframe, because it's a cargo aircraft, and it will also be able to carry 4 people in the back plus the 2 crew in the front. So they've really got a working aircraft. And then what I'm trying to do from the storytelling side is make it accessible as a pilot that's not like highly qualified per se. I fly a lot of things, but I'm not a professional pilot. And to be able to jump in there with some training and then actually be able to do it, trying to make it accessible both to the aviation community as well as to the public, to understand that this is not science fiction. It's not that big of a leap to understand that this is reality. And then talking about the practicality of it, I'm also helped them tell the story of their charge infrastructure. So we did a little scene yesterday at one of their physically installed charge cubes, which can charge the entire aircraft in, I think, under an hour. And then it gets more than an hour of flying time, plus its safety buffer range or reserve. So they really have a functioning system, and I'm trying to help tell that story as a guy who likes to fly warbirds and burns tons of avgas and giant piston engines. I still like traditional aviation. I'm not saying this is replacing it, but just trying to help tell the story that it's real, it's safe, and it's coming. And I think that people need to embrace the reality of this kind of aviation 2.0 that will be doing exactly that, replacing for me in Toronto, I can easily look at a situation where it can take me more than an hour to get 10 miles across the city if I'm driving. But a vehicle like this could theoretically make that all happen in less than 10 minutes. So it's definitely, it's coming, and it's a cool story to be able to be a part of trying to tell.
Thanks, Steve. Amazing. It's really amazing to listen to you. I really see the fire in your eyes about that. Mohammad, you was there yesterday as well, if I understood right. So how was the perspective from the ground?
So yeah, last week I visited Joby as well, and it was unbelievably eye-opening, like super interesting to watch the process. So they actually took me all the way to the quarry where they were doing the initial testing. And that quarry was just sort of a testing ground for all the various prototypes, and you watch these engineers, try and design something that has never existed before, right? It's easy to think that this is a plane and a helicopter, but really it's this thing in the middle that can do a little bit of both. But that transition moment where it goes from vertical to horizontal is an area of physics that we've never really had to deal with before. So seeing how they understand that transition was really interesting. And then the other thing was actually watching them build it from scratch. So I got a chance to go into the facilities where they're laying all the pieces of carbon fiber and making the actual individual pieces, then watching the motors get assembled with all the various components. And when you speak to the engineers, they're like, well, we can't just go and buy off a piece off the shelf and just plug it in. The piece off the shelf weighs too much, it's too bulky, it doesn't really do what we need it to do. So the answer is, we're going to build something from scratch. And they've done that pretty much for the whole aircraft. Almost the whole aircraft is built from scratch there in that facility. And it's just mind-blowing to see it all come together. And then just so effortlessly just take off, and off it goes. And the day that I was there, they were doing some stress testing, which well, I don't think that's the correct term, but they were doing some testing, as you would imagine, within the aircraft. And yeah, it was just fascinating to be able to sort of watch it happen, and see how far they've come, and how close it possibly could be. Like, to think that within less than a year or two, these things will be flying around Dubai potentially commercially is mind-blowing. And yeah, I can't wait to actually be able to get on one of these as a passenger and reap the benefits that Steve was mentioning there of, yeah, everything that comes as part of the package is too much to mention.
Yeah, no, that's great. I see also the same with you. I mean, even if I've seen Joby a couple of weeks ago on the Verticon, just the scale-up model, but it's amazing to imagine what does it mean for aviation 2.0 in the future. I would like to come back a little more to architecture, and then a question for Ivanna. You're the youngest here, and you're talking specifically to young people. How do you think your audience feels about electric, if they know it all what we discuss right now? And do you think young architects are excited about new forms of architecture in aviation?
I think, unfortunately, in our universities, we don't speak about this that much. And I think we go quite like with frames that it's only about architecture, and it's really great when we analyze, for example, infrastructure, that is really important. But for example, we have only one semester of like city planning. So basically we have only some amount of time, opportunity to learn more about another scale. And for example, for me, this project, like city planning, urban planning, was the most interesting because you work with so many different areas, and you have to pay attention on so many different things. So I would say that to connect this, for example, aviation, aircraft, so many new words, so many new topics, I think that our universities, or maybe like my role as, let's say, leader of voice or influencer, would be to talk more about new topics. So new, like, future architects or students of architecture, they know that there is not just architecture, there is like combination, there is much like wider area where people can learn this and this and this, and also architecture. So the combination of aviation and city planning and architecture, that would be really great. And also I would say that our generation cares a lot about like CO2, about like how should we care about, because for example right now our rule is to not to build anything new but to rebuild already existing things, and that's why we work more about reusing, rebuilding, and so on and so on. So we do care about what we are doing, how do we produce, should we really use that much of these transportations. But I really think that if we can explain this also in a sustainable way, then I mean my generation is up and is and is ready to create and to do new things.
But it's amazing because we are coming from the gasoline fuel car generation, so we had already problems to adapt EV cars. So, but it is what it is. You know, if you're in innovation and in technology, and I have a question regarding that to Hector, because Hector is also not only focused on aviation architecture or planning, he shares a lot of content about also new technology. From your experience, what is the best way to engage the general public in new technology, and how to break the first fear reaction not to novelty? Also, how to respond to the "Nia" sayers.
Yeah, well, I would say it's always. I mean, I'm kind of using the same plan all the time. No, I would say the most important it's to make it human. I mean, just basic for people. You know, like you and I that are just walking on the streets, no, nothing fancy, no complicated. So it's trying to find, you know, the benefits of this technology on the daily basis. So if you start from here, then it's where you can just get really good connection between technology and people, no? So for me, that's the first thing. No, it's just to bring it to the normal lives, so people understand that okay, that's something that it can benefit me if I'm using it. And what you were mentioning, for example, the EV cars, no, maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, no one was thinking about, you know, electric cars. But now you can see them, you know, every day, like a normal thing. No, it's not really something spectacular. No, so you know, the point is to find, let's say this point. I mean, this particular point where the things are just becoming the norm. I mean, 50, 60, 70 years ago, when you were seeing a plane, you know, flying over the sky, people were just looking up, no, because it was not really something normal. These days, I mean, we're just having hundreds, if not thousands of planes just crossing the skies. No one is looking up, no? So with the eVTOLs, for example, or advanced air mobility, we will have a period where, you know, when the first aircrafts are just starting to fly, we will look up again, but at some point they will become just like cars or trains or a bus, no? So I would say this is the secret, no? Just try to make it normal.
Can I add something there, Hector?
Yeah, go ahead.
I really like what you said there about start with the human, then work back to the technology, and it reminds me of the story of like Apple versus Microsoft. And part of that story, there's a moment, I believe, where Steve Jobs says, look, we don't go try and get the best technology and then try and sell it to the person. We go to the person, figure out what does the person need, and then work back to figure out what technology can we just package up to give to them just to fulfill their need, and work back from the people's needs. Which where you're saying, Hector, is if we just go to a person and understand where their pain points are, and then say, well, look, based upon your pain point, here's something we've made to fulfill your need, then they're going to be like, oh, great, nice, love it. But if you come to them and say, oh, there's this brand new technology and we're going to put you in this airplane that takes off like this and then goes like that, they might be like, oh, I'm not too sure. But you say, no, don't worry about that. It's an airplane, but you don't need to go to the airport. There's a bus stop just over there. We call it a vertiport. You can take off. It looks nice, and it'll get you there in 15 minutes. You just explain it to them as if casual, nothing too glamorous, and you oversimplify the technical stuff and you leave that to one side. And for the large majority of people and the public, I think that's going to be enough. Like they don't need to know the physics. They don't know how planes fly. They're still enjoying holidays. Just for a large majority of people, I think that's going to be the most important part. Is don't even bother explaining it to them. Just tell them we're fixing your problem, and here you go.
And I want to expand on what Hector and Ivanna just said, and I think that's a very interesting point about the knowledge and education. Again, visibility. Like Hector said, 10 years ago, no one knew that electric cars is a possibility. Or what Ivanna said, that they don't get to learn that in the university, and some of that is kind of the issue that we have in our society. For example, electric cars were being built 10 years ago, but there was opposition because people didn't want that or didn't believe it will work, right? And there was so much controversy, and we politicized that point until one car company starts selling their cars, and then now everyone wants it, right? And all this time, that effort that was put in there to go against that technology is detrimental to the world and the society and our people. Unfortunately, that's the part that the politics play. But as educators, I think it's really important to not get bogged down into the politics of the things. So, for example, when it is a new technology, something is coming up, even if it's educational purposes, I think we should entertain that. I have another example. A friend of mine, he was doing his mechanical engineering, and in his university, when he talked to his professor that, okay, I want to do something in electric mobility or electric cars at that time, he was said, look, don't waste your time in that. This will never happen. And honestly, right now, I am speaking with some people who are professors of aviation in universities, respectable people, and they're telling me that it is engineeringly, humanly, electronically not possible. They're trying to defend that electric motor is much more complicated than an internal combustion engine. And any Tom, Dick, and Harry can see that it's not true, right? Electrical engine have one motor, and you have fewer parts, and you need fewer amount of maintenance and oil changes, and you don't need any of that. So I think this is really key. We need to start accepting as human beings, as a society, that, okay, if something is coming up, at least be open-minded about it and not just blindly make it a political statement and political issue. And I think that will really change the perspective of becoming forward-looking people. And as I think thought leaders, is our responsibility to voice that.
You're fully right, Ahmad. And I think it's also lobbyism and lobby of companies. And I grew up in the heart of Bavaria between BMW, Audi, and Mercedes. And also here, 10 years ago, if you stated about an EV car, and I can tell you a couple of my family members working for automotive, no go.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, right? I mean, the whole German industry is such a shame because they have been producing amazing cars for hundreds of years, and now they cannot produce a single electric car with profit. I mean, they are losing money on every car they produce. So, there's also that lobbying, discourage people not to buy it so that we don't have to lose money.
I don't want to say it like that. I would like to say it we are too lazy.
Hey, I'm just bringing out the controversy.
Now we are too lazy to adapt a new situation. That's German, let's say, behavior and but we are great engineers. So I would like to pull a little back. But let's come back to the topic. And if you're talking about urban planning, infrastructure, or mobility, how do you simplify complex ideas for an audience that may not have a technical background? Because I think that's a great question. People that don't have the technical background, they maybe will not understand that electrical motor has less maintenance, what you said. So what works best, storytelling, visuals, or real-world examples? Ahmad, question for you.
Yeah, I think it's not that simple as, you pick one and just do that. We have to engage in all aspects and communicate and educate. The wider problem statement here, right? Because if you look at from a technical perspective, an idea of vertiport is fantastic, but vertiport implies already that there is a port that everyone have to congregate. And if you have to congregate to a place, then it doesn't provide that flexibility that you need. The use case of urban or regional is kind of like detrimented. You know, we already have regional airports. We already have tiny little places where aircraft can land and take off. So it's not going to be any different from that. Secondly, I think the bigger challenge is also where cities are already, you know, built up, and you have very limitation of what city planning can do, or the environmental, socio-environmental impact, socio-economical impact of that. Finding the right place which is safe, which can be built up, is not only an architectural challenge, engineering challenge, but acceptance challenge. And I think some of the locations around the world are probably very lucky, like Middle East and Dubai and other places where there's a lot of smart cities popping up. They can really integrate into the design from day one. So I think, you know, tackling this challenge in all angles, there are engineering challenges, there are educational challenges, and there are also, you know, socioeconomic challenges. If we can talk about this is why I am here. Because I want to start the conversation and sort of get people engaged in the challenge. And probably because it's difficult, a lot of people try to avoid it as well. Oh, you know, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to get into this. This is too difficult for me. And so I think it's just good to just open up and accept what you don't know. I'm not an expert in architecture or vertiport. But I know for a fact logic dictates that I can't have a vertiport next door to my house, because where I live in Barcelona, the city is already built up. If I have to do it, I have to think outside the box. Would I put it on top of some tall building? How do I integrate that into the infrastructure? How do people get there? I mean, these are the things that we have to be open about. And that will only happen if we bring the questions out there and we get into a conversation with open mind, and all aspects have to be taken. You know, people. I think it's a responsibility of regulatory bodies, governments to talk about it, and I see that not happening enough. I think from group here, we are trying our best. So I'm happy with what we are doing, but I think more needs to be done, right?
Yeah. Looking ahead, what role do you think content creators will play in shaping the cities and infrastructure of the future? I mean, we are these people, as you said, we are talking about that, and we give the content to the social media platforms. Hector, how do you think about that? What is our role in that?
Well, I mean, a little bit what we have been just going, let's say, around since the beginning, no? It's about educating, no? So I mean, what we need to make sure is that we are advising, you know, the normal people, no, the people on the streets correctly, no, and that, like Mohammed was mentioning, we need to provide them the value of the things more than probably the technical stuff. And, you know, I mean, people at the end of the day, I mean, they don't want complicated things. No, they just want to understand. Okay, we'll talk about smart cities. We'll talk about advanced air mobility, eVTOLs. I mean, there is a lot of let's say flying around topics that are not probably yet well understood. No. So instead of going, let's say, or just elaborating from these topics, we should focus, let's say, all the way around. It's okay, you know, a vertiport, how it's going to benefit you. You know, I know I'm traveling for work to the airport, I don't know, every week, and I'm just spending hours in the taxi, blah, 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 blah. Instead, if they put, I don't know, a vertiport, like, I don't know, 20 minutes from my house. Okay, so, you know, I will win, you know, maybe 20 minutes each and every time. No, so, okay, they will probably not understand all the technicality of vertiports and so on, but what they will understand is that, okay, that's good for me, so it's good for me, so I'm going to become a user, so I'm going to normalize it. So that's a little bit the deal, no? Just make the thing just common, no? The same as the eVTOLs, no? I mean, okay, we were talking about Joby, but as we know, there are hundreds of companies, obviously, on the race of getting certified. Obviously, not all of them, unfortunately, will make it, but I can see probably that we may be having vertiports with more than probably, 10, 15, or 20 different models of eVTOLs, no? So then, again, if we just go to create, more debate in terms of which aircraft it's better for me, do I need one of, 5-seater, only 2-seater, etc., etc. So I think that we need just to make it more easy for the people, no? And on the question, I mean, we have a role here, no? Like Matt was mentioning, we need to, let's say, express through the social media how we see the things, no, and how they are going to benefit us, as society, adopting these things in the future. So I think that it's a good job, no, to to be part of and try to influence, if we can just call it this way, on a positive way to the people, no?
And just to add, I mean, I know that Steve has been kind of quiet, but he brings a completely different perspective of, that apprehension to adopt, because we have not seen people flying it. We've not seen people actually see it in action. And Steve going out there, actually flying the thing, when, the thing that he will expose is a completely different aspect of what perhaps me and Hector and Mohammed and Ivanna are not doing. Right, so it's a combination of everyone have different skills and knowledge and exposure. So I think that this is really very good that people like us have come together now, and we are talking about it.
Thank you, Ahmad. We are running to the end of the show already, so we have almost 10 minutes left, and we're receiving, that's good, the first questions from the audience. So one question for Mohammed. How do you think AM has to face the people that rejects new technology?
How do you think AM has to
How do you think advanced air mobility has to face the people that reject new technology?
I think it won't have to face them, to be honest with you. I think with any new technology that has to be adopted, there will be the early adopters. There'll be the people who are first in line to get on it. Then the first adopters will prove that it's safe and nothing happens. Then you'll have the people that were kind of on the fence and they didn't want to go first. They wanted to let someone else to go first. They will get on board. And even when that second group of people are on board, the people who are rejecting are still rejecting. Then you'll have the people that were kind of on the no side, but they weren't completely against it. Then they'll jump on board. And last but not least, we'll have the rejectors, slowly begin to sort of recognize, okay, fine, this is now reality. I'm just fighting against nothing. And then they'll join it. There's a really good book called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell that describes these processes of change, where when you want to introduce change to any system, you always have these activators, these people who are first in line to want to try it. We have to, this is where I think social media and influencers comes into play. It's the people who are willing to be first in line, who are willing to go out there and talk about it and make noise about it and drum up the attention of the public about, look, this is what's happening. What we can do is, if we can get the right people to try those early aircraft, and I think Dubai is a great place to start because it's full of influencers, is that you will very quickly begin to make a lot of noise. And then that noise will be like a catalyst that then allows acceptance to come by. And the people who will reject it, they won't get on until, I don't know, 2035 or something.
Also, another point for content creators would be that people love to see, when you compare some things. So, for example, niche of urban planning, it's not the most interesting niche for daily user, for every person that we see on the streets. But for example, when we compare how great is infrastructure, for example, in Copenhagen, like everyone can just ride a bicycle, and how bad is in car dominant cities or countries, we see, wow, why doesn't work in our country? Why doesn't work in our city? So when people compare, wait, how maybe I want to try, how is it better? So that's where this new technologies come, and that's how we can profit. Like, look, that's how can you use it?
Yeah, that is great. I have another question for you, Ivanna. As a part of all the new technology, also new tools and software appear, just like LYNEports. How do you see the young architects accepting new ways of approaching projects? Do you think they are open to try new approaches, new softwares? Or do they want to do things as their references to do things with the legacy software?
I always think that there are so many different types of architecture students and of future architects. There are always someone who just wants to go into architecture, and there is always someone who wants to do everything but not directly architecture. So I think that the way is to give this vision, to give this already examples that there is this area, and that they can try these new programs to develop themselves in this area. So I'm pretty sure that the moment when my, for example, followers will see that there is aviation area and that they can also build not just typical buildings, they will love to try this new progress and these new versions of programs where they can learn it. And it would be also nice when there are like more workshops on this topic, so people can try, people can learn, people can know if they are into this topic or not.
Thank you, Ivanna. I have a question from Malik. How can policymakers and regulators leverage social media to educate the public about advanced air mobility policies? I don't know who wants to take on this question. Hector, maybe?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one. Talking about the regulations and so on. Yeah, I mean, I would say this is the tough one because as we know, and we were just discussing, this is new. That's starting from almost scratch. It's a brand new ecosystem and requires obviously to be regulated. No, I mean, it needs to be properly defined. I remember that Ahmad was mentioning about air traffic control. No, okay, the planes obviously, yeah, even though they are in the skies, they are flying organizedly. No, they are just halfway to fly. So I would say when it comes to advanced air mobility, it's going to be the same. A little bit what we have been discussing all the time. No, it's about education. So I mean, using the part of the regulator, let's say, coming to the social media and just deliver to the public should be, I mean, in a way of normalizing again the things. No. I would say the most important part in regulation is safety, and it's something that we were just discussing on this webinar. So I would say if we are able to use this voice, no, that we have, and make sure that all these regulations and all of this way of organizing this ecosystem, you know, it's safe, no, and we just bring it to the streets, no, so people understand, you know, why it's safe, no, and why it's regulated, and why it requires this regulation. That I would say can help to build trust. So, you know, people, you know, will trust a little bit more probably the whole ecosystem and a lot of the processes, no, that are required to make these aircraft flies and, you know, fly, you know, on the correct routes, safely, etc., etc. So I think that yeah, it's a little bit finding this balance between the norms and being able to translate all of this into the normal, let's say, jargon, no, the people.
Thanks, Hector. Any last thoughts from the speaker before we end the session?
This is Steve, just jumping in. I've just been walking the dog, so I had to reposition here. It's on audio only currently. But yeah, I don't feel like I'm going to be talking to regulators from my perspective either. It's really going to be about helping to tell the story from a more public perspective, and also the general aviation world, trying to get acceptance, mostly to people that are on the fence. And again, the idea of people that are rejecting the technology, it's pretty difficult to reach them when they're dug in. So I don't know that it's worth fighting that battle as much as just trying to make it sort of tell the story that's acceptable and get public that are not sure on side. And I think the people that are rejecting it are going to reject it until the last minute when they just get in one because they realize that's the option. So that's where I'm at from a storytelling perspective, and just trying to help, create that ecosystem that's going to be coming, and just I'm glad to be a part of the front line helping tell the story.
Yeah, I think just to add, because we have only a few minutes left, the regulatory part is slow process, and you have to bear in mind these are people. The regulators are people who are responsible for the safety and responsible for making sure things work properly and people are safe. And there's a lot of responsibility. So I can understand the apprehension to make decision, but at the same time, we also have to understand that these are not probably the expert of the industry when they are making decisions. So they have to really learn, and they have to take the time. If you look at a politician, he's not an aeronautical engineer, he's not so they do have advisors, but still it's a slow process. But at least I can say one thing, Europe, we are experts in regulating everything, It's a joke, but I feel sometimes, and especially working closely with some of them, that the world is innovating and we are regulating it in Europe. So hopefully we don't do that. So, regulation for the sake of regulating is not the purpose. The regulation should be to make sure that things get better, things get improved, and not just get piled on to something which is legacy. And you need to change things when it comes to changing. Like we talked about use spaces. The regulation around use spaces is based on our commercial aviation. Exactly how they do that right now. They want to build an architecture where they have, flight levels and so on and so forth. That's not going to work in an urban and city environment, I can assure you. And logic dictates as well. So, hopefully people will learn, it will become a norm, and then it will be more acceptable, and then it will be more easy to regulate.
Thank you, Ahmad. Any last thoughts?
I have one last thing. I think the day that the regulators turn around and give a big, massive thumbs up to the aircraft manufacturers to say, you've got your certification, I really do think that is a moment that really should be televised and celebrated, because that's a moment where you've turned the page and you need to make as much noise as that as possible. I think we're all very accustomed to seeing like celebrities with like a verified sort of blue tick on there, although you can buy that for $8.99 a month now, so that's kind of ruined. But having this sort of verification for the advanced air mobility to say you've now achieved your stamp of approval, I think could become like a symbol in the industry that can allow people to have that peace of mind to know that the experts have done what they needed to do, they've done their due diligence, and this thing is up to the scratch of aviation safety that we're used to and that we've been accustomed to, which is the safest way to travel. This is up there at the same level, and I think it will give people that peace of mind seeing that stamp of approval.
Thank you, Mohammed. To wrap things up, I believe that social media is not just a tool for engagement, it's a catalyst for change. Whether we are inspiring the next generation, showcasing innovations in design, or tackling the complexities of public acceptance, social media has the power to bring AAM closer to the public, understanding and embrace. I hope that today's conversation sparks new ideas and encourages all of us to think more creatively about how we can use these platforms to shape the future of urban air mobility. I challenge all of you to think about how you can contribute to this conversation. Whether it's you're a content creator, an architect, a planner, or simply someone who cares about the future of our cities. Let's use social media not to only inspire, also to drive real-world change, ensuring that AAM becomes a transformative force for good in our communities. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. It was nice talking to you all. Take care.
Bye.